Hey everybody, here's a quick shot of my old table that I've had for 30 years. Piece of 3/4 inch mild steel plate. Needed to be having a facelift to it, so cut it up square. It was pretty out of square. Took my plaza, went all the way around it, got it squared up, ground down fairly flat. I wanted to flip it over and use the bottom that hadn't been marred up, so started working on that. Found some nice 8-inch casters from a buddy of mine. You can see here I'm getting them cleaned up. Full ball bearings everywhere, all caged. O-rings to seal off every bearing on these. Very high quality casters. I was really excited to get them. Here you can see some of the O-rings that keep the grease all intact. Some of the bearings here. So cleaned them up, checked everything out, put them all back together with new grease. Really happy with them. They're going to work out nice for underneath this table. Allow me to roll it around out from the wall, get all the way around it. The top had a bit of a divot in the thing. It was warped a little bit, so I had a lot of material laying around, a bunch of flat bars, all 3/16. So went over to my buddy's iron worker, punched some holes for decorative, and I'm just starting to build a grid using my Fireball tool squares. Really like those. Some other 3-inch material that I had. Just going to use all this to help pull that warp out of the center of the table. At least I'm going to try anyway. Everything in the same plane. Again, those Fireball tool squares really work good. Here you can see the kind of the final project here before I welded it down. And I took a really big C-clamp, welded that to that low spot. You can see it's still low there, and I started trying to pull it up. I got it to within about 60 thou. It'll have to be good enough for me, not completely flat. Got everything welded off after that, just kept going around the table little by little, tried not to warp everything. So that worked out pretty good, and started building the rest of it. Here are some drawers I picked up off Marketplace. Pretty old and beat up, but they were going to work for me to put underneath this table. I just had to make them fit, so I started cutting the whole thing apart. Took about 5.5 inches out of the center of it so I could make 2 drawer units for underneath the table. Pulled all the guts out, switched the right from the left because I wanted to switch one of them upside down. Then I fabbed up just some sheet metal aluminum lids for it to keep all the dust and stuff off. Here you can see the top drawer, pretty tight clearance. Here again the aluminum I'm using just to make a dust top for them. I had to pick the table up and put it over the top of the drawer units in order to get them in there so I could use the most shelving space and drawers. I built an aluminum jig on my buddy's Bridgeport, and that allowed me to line up my mag drill all the way down. Took me about 7 hours to get all 270 plus holes drilled. A lot of shavings, a lot of scrap to pick up when it's all said and done, but it worked out really good. I was able to just work myself all the way down the table, get the holes in. Went back later and routed a 45 chamfer on the top side of all the holes, make all the pins go in easy. Here's another shot of the grid. Everything's 4-inch on center. This is before I had the routing done for the chamfers. Here's some 3/16 stainless that I had. I wanted to make some grab handles slash clamp hangers just to go on the sides of the table. All 3/16, a little bit of angle I included in there. These are some tabs they're going to put on each side just for a designated ground clamp. Fit up some electrical, just using some Clecos to get everything pre-fit and drilled. Welded some angle on the one side just to put all my TIG rod in. Get started anyway. I'll need more, but it gives me a home for some of it. Then I had a gap between the 2 drawer units, and I wanted to make a drawer space and fill that whole bottom end up with usable space. So again, using my Fireball tool squares to make some hangers and a big tall skinny drawer to put everything in. Here I'm mocking up a scene where everything's going to hang for a lot of the F-clamps. Got some big 300-pound slides, really nice ball bearing glides for underneath could cantilever all the way out and have fully opened 40 plus inches. Here I'm just kind of getting set up for paint day. Got everything cleaned up, sanded down. I just use painter's Visqueen, some really light 4mm stuff. Use magnets, go all the way around my shop with it, get air moving. Just a satin black, used cheap, just some Rust-Oleum thinned out with xylene, put some hardener in it. Works out pretty good. Shot it with my HVLP. And I'm starting to get things put back together as the paint was dried. Painted all the handles to match the rest of my toolboxes. Gonna tie the shop together a little bit. Here's some of the F-clamps that I cut the ends off to make the style to go into the table now. They work out really good, real happy with them. Had my old vise for 30 years on here. It's an old Reed 406R with a pivoting rear jaw, which I didn't know it had. There you can see it pivot. It was all froze. Took me a long time to work the tapered pin out there in the back and get it all moving again, but man, it works really, really well. It's made for holding odd angles, and you'll see it coming up here. There's a shot. I don't have the jaws in there yet. I pulled them off, took them over to my buddy's mill, refurbished the serrations in them after I flipped them over. This is just a shot of some of the dovetails that were built into that. Here I'm building some of the F-clamps, just using shoulder bolts, 5/8 shoulder bolts underneath to weld them on and make clamps. Nothing fancy, but they sure work nice. Real happy with the table. Using it a lot now. Here's some of the serrations I recut on the smooth side of the jaws. Gave you a new face to work with. All right, well, there's another idea for you.